So I wanted, before we get started, to let everyone know that I have a new podcast out, and it's called Meditations. If you like the Meditations segment of this current podcast, you'll like the Meditations podcast. It's nothing but 20 minutes of meditative sounds. And now, on with the podcast.
Americans love scenery. We want to see it all, from one coast to the next, Mount Rushmore down to the Everglades. So hop into a Chevy Malibu and take the scenic route. It's the car you knew America could build. There's a place where people count on friendships they can trace back generations, where they can count on the same stool at the coffee shop waiting for them every morning. This place is called Glen Ellen, and you can find it in every bottle of Glen Ellen wine. This is craft brewed Herman Joseph's, the smoothest, easiest drinking specialty beer in the entire solar system. And I believe you'll find drinkable in the dictionary right after don't order a beer you can't drink. Zoingo! Boingo! The freestyle pogo with more boing, more bounce. Bounce further, bounce higher with Zoingo Boingo. To see what makes Arrowhead Mountain Spring water different from those other waters, you have to go back to the source. And with Arrowhead, that means going back a little farther and longer than most. Between security challenged and security strengthened, there's one important word: how. And it is the how that makes all the difference to our nation and our world. Lockheed Martin. We never forget who we're working for. What makes Kraft Singles so good? 2 out of every 3 kids don't get the recommended amount of calcium. But with Kraft Singles, they get a good source of calcium and the taste they love. Kraft Singles. Magic every single time. Throw boring overboard with a new real meal from Long John Silver's. A meal worthy of a plate. Just $4.99. Only at Long John Silver's. We may not all be geniuses, but we can all do something smart. Introducing the Hyundai 199 Sonata Lease. It's a smart deal on a really smart car.
And my parents, man, they were always watching the 700 Club because they were Christians. And it would brainwash them into thinking that everything bad in the world that happened was because it was the end times.
Good morning. It's Thursday, Gaslighting Thursday, May the 1st, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have patriotic shorts, motivation, Bishop Barron, Ayn Rand, and gaslighting. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. And now the headlines for Thursday, May the 1st. An airman's widow is petitioning the U.S. Supreme Court to review a wrongful death claim she filed against the federal government. Senior Russian security official Dmitry Medvedev said the signing of a minerals deal between Ukraine and the United States meant President Trump had forced Kiev to pay for future U.S. military aid. This week, the House GOP passed, with bipartisan support, the Take It Down Act to create a safer digital future and protect our kids from deepfake exploitation. Upset about Trump's aggressive deportations? Thank a Democrat. In Darlington, in England, a real estate that was planned to house illegal immigrants is currently on hold. The new homes were damaged after an unknown assailant plowed a dumper truck through them. The British have had enough. They're fighting back. Ford CEO Jim Farley says the car maker is building 2 new manufacturing facilities in America. Update. We now have only 12 seconds left until climate change destroys the planet. And those are the headlines for Thursday, May the 1st. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now the Political Corner, featuring a quote from Ronald Reagan. Quote, "We must reject the idea that every time a law is broken, society is guilty rather than the lawbreaker. It is time to restore the American precept that every individual is accountable for his actions." Unquote. And that was the Political Corner. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now the Patriotic Short.
Why can't U.S. submarines go as deep as Russian submarines? Most American subs are built with steel hulls. It's strong, reliable, and easier to work with, but it limits how deep they can go. Submarines like the Virginia class usually operate at around 800 to 1,000 feet. But Russia has done things differently. During the Cold War, they built submarines with titanium hulls. Titanium is stronger and lighter than steel. It also resists corrosion, and some could go over 2,000 feet. So why didn't the U.S. do the same? Titanium is expensive and hard to weld, and every time a titanium sub dives deep, the metal becomes more brittle. Eventually, it has to be retired. Instead of going deeper, the U.S. focused on making better torpedoes. The Mark 48 was faster and could reach greater depths than any enemy sub.
And that was the Patriotic Short. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, a few minutes of motivation.
What do you do when your battle chooses you? What do you do when something shows up on your doorstep that you did not directly cause, choose, or definitely anticipate?
There's problems that we go through that cause stress, worry, anxiety, and fear, but you might be in the battle of your life. I want to encourage you. It's not about what's happening around you. It's always about what's happening inside of you.
Life is hard sometimes. Easy, it's not an option. It's hard. Keeping your spirits up, getting up every day knowing and feeling that death is watching over you and say, you better sleep with one eye open because I'm waiting on you. It's hard when you're hurting. It's hard. You got bills, you got responsibilities. It's hard. But it's worth fighting. It's worth believing. It's worth giving yourself a chance. It's worth mustering yourself up, standing up inside yourself. It's worth fighting relentlessly, never giving up. You can do it. You can do it.
Just because you feel afraid doesn't mean you have to be afraid. Just because you feel discouraged doesn't mean you have to be discouraged. Just because you have fear doesn't mean fear has to have you.
When you have fear, fear makes you speak in a certain way. When you have fear, but when you have faith, you don't need to count. When you have faith, you don't need to go outside. When you have faith, you don't need to see how many horses. When you have faith, you don't need to see how many armies. When you have faith, you don't need to see how many swords. When you have faith, you don't need to count no shields. When you have faith, you don't need to look at the parameter and see how many against. When you have faith, you just believe and it'll happen. You gotta get to the point where you don't need a car anymore. You don't need a house anymore. You don't need to be pushed by anybody anymore. Your dreams, your wives gonna push you. Your spouse is gonna push you. Your child is gonna push you. The need to get better is going to push you. Because you're closer than you're ever going to be, it's gonna push you. You don't need anything to push you. Your goals are going to push you. Your dreams are going to push you. The opportunity of a lifetime that happens in this particular time frame is going to push you. It's going to drive you. It's going to make you better. You got to tell life, I don't know who you've been dealing with, but you ain't dealt with me. You got to tell bankruptcy. You got to tell divorce. You got to tell sickness. I don't know who you've been dealing with, but you come up against the wrong one this time. If you are willing to ride, you can start from nothing. When I talk about beast mode now, I'm talking about the ant that's very small, but that can probably live 100 times his weight. I'm saying that some of you in this room, you might not be a lion yet. Some of you in this room, you might be an ant. You might have small beginnings. You might not have a lot of money. You might not have a lot of resources. You might be the ant, and the ant has very little, but he's determined. He's strong. He has a dream and a goal, and he'll do whatever it takes. Many of you right now, life's got you up against the rope, and you got to do me a favor. Like, you can't give up. You can't give in. Listen to me. If it was easy, everybody would do it. And if life's got you backed up, I need you to start fighting back. When the going get tough, tough get going. When you go through the valley, when you have been knocked down, when you know what it is to be destroyed, when you know what it is to be wiped out by life, no one can take that from you. If you come from a family right now that's broke, use that to your advantage. I use that to my advantage that I was a high school dropout, that I was homeless, that I ate out of trash can. I love dealing with a dude who think because he come from money, he better than me. Let's go. You got money, but do you got that dog? Yeah, you got money, you got privilege, but do you got that dog? There's certain things when you privilege that mama can buy you, but you can't buy grit, and you can't buy grind, and you can't buy resilience, and you can't buy heart, and you can't buy that dog. I got this dog for being homeless. I'm getting paid now because the homelessness didn't break me.
Come on, you need to remember, this is not the first time you cried. This is not the first time you were short of breath. This is not the first time you didn't see a way clear. This is not the first time you were hurt. This is not the first time your heart was broken. This is not the first time you didn't have enough money. This is not the first diagnosis that came up from behind.
Say, I'm going to live to tell the story. This too shall pass. I will remain. I'm not going to quit. Every one of my burdens, there's a blessing on the inside of it. If you don't quit, you will win, baby. Just keep coming back. If you got nothing left to give, just show back up. Half of life, man, is just showing up.
I couldn't give up. Homeless, I still couldn't give up. I'm one class shot, a PhD. I can't give up. Why? Because the value, what it's worth, what I put in too much. I've given too much. I sweat too much. I've given up sleep. I've given up friendship. I've given up so much stuff that I had to get back later. Why? Because the value, I put too much in it. What's it worth to you? What does it cost? What price have you paid for it? What has it cost you? And if it costs you something, then you better not quit until you get a harvest. You better not quit till it's fully developed. You better not quit in the midst of the process. I need you to speak victory. I don't care what's going on around you. I need you to speak victory. I need you to talk victory. I don't care what your circumstances are. I don't need you to speak your reality. If you broke, you ain't got to tell the whole world you broke. I need you to speak victory. I need you to say I'm going to graduate when you can't even see it. I need you to say my book will be finished. I'm an author long before it's finished. You have to believe it when you cannot see it. You have to speak it and say it's so that it can become a reality. Because if you can speak it, if you can say it, you're going to eventually get to it.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of meditation.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. Because visions of sleep creeping
dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp, I turned my collar to the cold and damp, when my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people maybe, people talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs their voices never shared, and no one dared disturb the sound of silence. Fools say now you do not know, silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words and I might teach you, play my arms and I might reach you, but my words like silent raindrops fell and echoed in the wells of silence. And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made. And the sign flashed out in his warning, and the words that it was forming. And the signs and the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls and tenement halls, and whispered in the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people maybe, people talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs their voices never shared, and no one dared disturb the sound of silence.
And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the Daily Stoic.
Want nothing equals have everything. No person has the power to have everything they want, but it is in their power not to want what they don't have, and to cheerfully put to good use what they do have. Seneca, Moral Letters, 123.3. Is there a person so rich that there is literally nothing they can't afford? Surely there isn't. Even the richest people regularly fail in their attempts to buy elections, to purchase respect, class, love, and any number of other things that are not for sale. If obscene wealth will never get you everything you want, is that the end of it? Or is there another way to solve for that equation? To the Stoics, there is, by changing what it is you want. By changing how you think, you'll manage to get it. John D. Rockefeller, who was as rich as they come, believed that a man's wealth must be determined by the relation of his desires and expenditures to his income. If he feels rich on $10 and has everything he desires, he really is rich. Today, you could try to increase your wealth, or you could take a shortcut and just want less.
And that was the Daily Stoic. And now, The Exorcist.
Why does the church have you say something? It's not that you're saying something that's false. What you're doing is you're expressing your hope and your desire. In other words, I tell God, I love you. You know, I love you above all things, even though you might not. But the reason you tell him that is because your desire is that he will start to infuse that love of things above. You'll dispose yourself to it, and then he'll start to infuse it. The way it works is because we're not the cause, nothing we do causes them to increase. What we have to do, he says, is we perform the action of that virtue, which then causes a disposition in us for an increase in the virtue, and then God infuses it. This is why I'll tell people, if you want to build charity, just start telling God you love him on regular intervals throughout the course of the day. But I don't feel it. Yeah, I know. Don't.
And that was The Exorcist. And now, the Ayn Rand thought of the day. Quote, intellectual freedom cannot exist without political freedom, which cannot exist without economic freedom. A free mind and a free market are corollaries. Unquote. And that was the Ayn Rand quote of the day. Back in a minute. Thanks. And now a little bit of Maria Bartiromo and then Stuart.
I'll say in regards to everything we talked about today, I think Stephanie Pomboy was super on point with a lot of the stuff she brought up. Balancing trade via this tariff strategy is something that needs to be done from a long-term solution standpoint. We need to figure out how to pay down the debt. However, there will be some disruption in the immediate term, whether it's the stock market or Main Street businesses. I hope that disruption is as minimal as possible.
Yeah, and that's where we're seeing the earnings picture really mixed. McDonald's stock today under pressure. Your reaction, final word, Todd Pyro.
I will double down on what Mark said from a substance perspective, so I'll leave you with a joke. I too dined in a red room last night, but it originally was white. It became red because we had pasta. Back to you, Maria.
You cracked me up. That is great. Thank you so much, guys. Great to see you. And we'll see you again tomorrow, everybody. Thanks for being here. Varney and Company picks it up. David Asman in for Stu.
I'm still laughing about Todd's comment. Good guy. Maria, great show. Terrific show. I'm David Asman in for Stuart Varney today. The United States and Ukraine striking a landmark strategic minerals deal, giving America and U.S. taxpayers a major financial foothold as the administration pushes for peace. Meanwhile, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent telling Maria this Vatican meeting between Trump and Zelensky pushed the deal to the goal line. And in Washington, President Trump meeting with top business leaders at the White House as he champions his aggressive tariff strategy, but perhaps even more to their liking, strong tax and deregulatory incentives. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang credits Trump for sparking a U.S. tech and industrial renaissance. Well, Wall Street likes what it's hearing. Futures surging this morning. The Dow and the S&P and the NASDAQ all in the green. The 10-year Treasury, let's look at the yield. It's down just a tick. The 2-year is down as well, I believe. Yep, also just a tick. The Bitcoin, let's take a look at Bitcoin. It is trading up about $1,500, and oil is down, as is gold. Slight decrease in concerns about inflation. And big tech is booming. Meta and Microsoft post blowout revenue thanks to AI. And that's not all. Amazon and Apple dropped their earnings after the bell. We're going to be talking about all of this on the show today. President Trump will participate in the National Day of Prayer event at the White House, while former VP Kamala Harris returns kind of to the spotlight, slamming Donald Trump in her first major speech since the election loss. Thursday, May 1st, happy May Day 2025, Varney and Company is about.
And there you have it, the substitute for Stuart Varney because he's too tired to do his job, gaslighting his way into oblivion, and nonprofit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, what does the phrase, if you're explaining, you're losing, mean? This was said by Ronald Reagan, speaking of political campaigns. From the perspective of your audience, if you have to explain yourself, you come off looking desperate to convince. As a consequence, you lose the high ground. From a more philosophical perspective, if you have a clear conscience and strong conviction towards the positions you take, your values, truth, and direction, you don't need the opinions or consent of others. As a consequence, you don't need to explain yourself. However, if you yourself are not convinced of the validity and truth of your position, or you can't fully justify your choices, then you continue to expel words in an attempt to create the illusion of certainty. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Chapter 2 of Gaslighting.
1. Is it me or is it you making me think it's me? Portrait of a Gaslighter. Gaslighters have a number of characteristics that are important to know. The list you'll encounter in this chapter may seem long or overbroad. My purpose in breaking out this list is not to create a clinical definition so much as to draw a better picture of what gaslighting is, how it operates, and how you can spot it. You may find yourself thinking, well, that could describe the dynamics between my sister and me sometimes, and she's not a gaslighter. What we're looking at here are patterns. When enough of these qualities are present and persistent in a person, chances are you are dealing with a gaslighter. So, let's begin to paint our portrait. Their apologies are always conditional. Tony, age 56, quote, I was hit with, I'm sorry I cheated, but if you were a better wife, I wouldn't have looked for affection elsewhere. End quote. One of the first things people often notice about gaslighters is that they are masters of the conditional apology. You know, when someone says, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's not an apology. The other person is not taking responsibility for his behavior. He's simply manipulating you into feeling seen by acknowledging your feelings. Gaslighters will only apologize if they are trying to get something out of you. Even if they do give you an apology, if you listen carefully, you'll see that it's really a non-apology. And they'll usually only give it because you asked for one, or because they were forced by a judge or mediator to do so. They use triangulation and splitting. James, age 35, quote, my coworker told me that my gaslighting boss said he was letting me go. Gee, it would have been nice if my boss had told me himself. End quote. Gaslighters have a whole bag of tricks for manipulating people, but two of their favorites are triangulation and splitting, because driving a wedge between you and other people serves their need to dominate and control. Let's look at these two tactics. Gaslighters triangulate and split for the following reasons: to pit people against each other, to get people to align with them, to avoid direct confrontation, to avoid responsibility for their actions, to smear your character, to spread lies, to create chaos. Triangulation. Joni, age 30, quote, my husband told me my mother-in-law wanted to tell me she didn't agree with how I parented my child. I told him she could come talk to me herself, and I refused to talk about it with him any further. This is part of a pattern of manipulation from her. End quote. Triangulation is the psychological term for communicating with someone through other people. Instead of directly speaking to someone, gaslighters will go to a mutual friend, another coworker, a sibling, or another parent to get a message across. Triangulation behavior ranges from implied communication, I really wish Sally would stop calling me, hoping the receiver will pass this message along to Sally, to blatant statements such as, please tell Sally to stop calling me. Both are manipulative and indirect. Splitting. Maggie, age 55, quote, my ex told me my son said to him that I needed to back off and that he promised my son he wouldn't say anything. I called my son and asked him if he was having any concerns and if there was something he wanted to talk about. He said no, he was fine, and we chatted for a bit. I knew what would happen if I had talked through my ex. Total chaos. End quote. Gaslighters also love to pit people against each other. This is known as splitting. It gives them a sense of power and control. An example of splitting would be lying to a one friend about another, saying that a mutual friend had said something unflattering about them. Gaslighters are the ultimate agitators and instigators. They get a power blast from getting people riled up and fighting with each other. The gaslighters will then watch comfortably from the sidelines the very fight that they caused. Follow this simple rule. Unless a person says something to you directly, assume that what you are told was said about you by that person is not true. Gaslighters know that splitting and triangulating will draw you closer to them and distance you from the person they are pitting you against. They use blatant attempts to curry favor. Gaslighters are also masters at buttering people up. They will use false flattery to get what they want from you. As soon as you fulfill their needs, they'll drop their mask of niceness. Trust your gut. If the friendliness seems forced or phony, beware. They expect special treatment. Gaslighters feel that standard societal rules, such as politeness, respect, and patience, don't apply to them. They are above these rules. For example, a gaslighter will expect his partner to be home precisely at a certain time and have dinner on the table when he gets home. If the partner doesn't fulfill this obligation, the gaslighter becomes irrationally angry and retaliates. They mistreat people who have less power. Heidi, age 29, quote, "My ex-boyfriend would tease my little brother, but not in a buddy-buddy kind of way. It was more, I'm going to figure out your weak spots and expose them," end quote. You can tell a lot about people by how they treat a person who has less power than they do. For example, look at how someone treats waitstaff at a restaurant. Does she bark her order at the server, or does she order politely? What happens when a dish comes out and it is not what the diner requested? Does she assertively but politely ask for a correction, or does she make a scene and yell at the server? Demeaning the server can be a symptom of gaslighting. Another indication of gaslighting is how people behave toward or discuss children and animals. There is a difference between being indifferent to children or animals and treating them with disdain. Gaslighters may tease and pick on people or creatures perceived as lesser. You may also find that gaslighters have issues with road rage. They see someone cutting them off or not using a turn signal as a personal affront. They are ready to get even and correct this wrong that has been done to them. This behavior puts other drivers and the gaslighter's other passengers in danger. Daniel, age 28, quote, "At dinner with my ex-girlfriend, she screamed at the server when he brought out the wrong meal," end quote. They use your weaknesses against you. Dominique, age 30, quote, "When he saw me crying during an argument, he took it as a chance to pounce on me. He saw a weakness like animals see fresh blood," end quote. Many times you'll begin a relationship with a gaslighter feeling very safe. So you do what any trusting human in what she thinks is a healthy relationship would do. You share your intimate thoughts and feelings with the person. This is normal, natural, a healthy part of developing a close relationship. However, notice that the gaslighter rarely reveals as much intimate information about himself. Meanwhile, the information you share will soon be getting used against you in fights. It becomes psychological ammunition. For instance, a confidence you shared with the gaslighter about your conflicted relationship with your sister is now thrown back at you as, "No wonder we are arguing. Your sister can't stand you either. You treat her the same way you treat me." They compare you to others. Gaslighters also use comparison as a way of driving a wedge between people, thus gaining control. Parents who gaslight frequently compare their children to each other, and in unrealistic and blatant ways. The gaslighting parent usually has a golden child and a scapegoat child. The former could do no wrong, whereas the latter can do no right. This pits siblings against each other, and these feelings of competition commonly extend into adulthood. Your boss may say, "Why can't you produce like Jane? She comes in at 8 every morning. If she can do it, so can you." You may always be on the losing end of a comparison, except if it is to denigrate your competition. That is, gaslighters may sing your praises to others if their goal is to make those others look bad. Perfection is unattainable, no matter how hard you try to meet the gaslighter's unreasonable expectations. They are obsessed with their accomplishments. Victor, age 37, quote, when my girlfriend and I get into a fight, she constantly reminds me of how she was class valedictorian and that somehow makes her smarter than me. Hello, that was almost 20 years ago, and you had like 15 people in your graduating class. End quote. Gaslighters often will boast about the things they have accomplished, such as how they got an Employee of the Month award at work. Never mind that it was 15 years ago. They will badger you when you don't react with enthusiasm and praise, when they tell you once again about the time that they dropped the mic on someone. Gaslighters put an extreme amount of importance on their own accomplishments, however delusional these accomplishments and attributes may be. They prefer to associate with people who fawn over them. Friends who would confront gaslighters about their behavior have no place in the gaslighter's life. Gaslighters will associate only with people who put them up on a pedestal, the way they feel they deserve to be treated. The second gaslighters feel that you no longer admire and cater to them, they will drop you. They put you in a double bind. Double binds are situations in which you are forced to choose between two undesirable options, or you are given conflicting messages. For instance, your gaslighting spouse tells you that you need to lose weight, then serves various desserts that night at dinner. You are in a no-win situation. Gaslighters like to place people in emotional dilemmas. Your uncertainty is a sign to them that they have control over you. They are obsessed with their image. How dare you make gaslighters look bad? They will pay you back. Gaslighters are obsessed with how they look to others. They tend to spend a large amount of money on grooming products and a lot of time looking at themselves in the mirror. They may get upset when you touch their hair or use one of their grooming products. Perfection is their goal, and it is impossible to obtain. Some gaslighters will even forego necessities to pay for cosmetic surgery and other appearance-enhancing procedures. They are obsessed with your image. Not only can gaslighters be overly obsessed with how they look, they can also be very particular about how you look. Body weight tends to especially be a target for gaslighters. They will ridicule their partners about their weight and clothing choices. Gaslighters will buy outfits for their partners that they deem acceptable. The underlying message? You are not good enough. They con people. Shauna, age 35, quote, my brother said he needed to borrow $1,000 for rent because he had hit a rough patch. He cried about how his life had fallen apart. I scraped the money together for him. I found out later he blew it all gambling. End quote. Everything is a game to gaslighters, and conning is an essential part of the game. Gaslighters want to see how much they can swindle you, emotionally or financially. Gaslighters are also not as smart as they think. They will openly brag about their cons. This is one thing that often leads to their downfall. They cause fear in others. Alex, age 30, quote, I was with my class on a field trip, and one of the parent chaperones started yelling at a kid because he bumped into her. He was in 6th grade and having fun with his friends. It wasn't a personal slight. The chaperone's son, also a 6th grader, told the boy, now you've made her mad. End quote. Family and friends of a gaslighter may defend the gaslighter against people that have the audacity to call him out on his behavior, or may themselves avoid confronting the gaslighter. This occurs for two main reasons. One, the friends and family have become accustomed to the gaslighter's behavior and consider it to be normal. And two, they are protecting themselves from looking disloyal to the gaslighter. This is especially common in the children of gaslighters. You will learn more about parentification of gaslighters' children in Chapter 5. When family and friends experience the retaliation of the gaslighter, they learn to fear him and avoid confronting him at all costs. They have a bad temper. Nora, age 45, quote, He told my daughter she was worthless and she would be lucky to find someone stupid enough to marry her. What did she do to get him so angry? She told him to stop yelling at her. End quote. Because gaslighters feel they are owed loyalty by others, and because they have a fragile ego, any behavior is taken personally by gaslighters, with disastrous consequences to victims. Gun violence is a concern with gaslighters due to their hot tempers. In the United States, 8.9% of the population have both impulsive angry behavior and own firearms. Swanson et al., 2015. Gaslighters at first will try to quietly display this anger as to keep up their facade of perfection. However, they can only keep up this fake display for so long. The first time you see the gaslighter drop that mask, it can be quite startling. Punishment doesn't affect them. People with cluster B personality disorders, those higher in gaslighting behaviors, tend to have a different neuron firing pattern than do other people when disciplined or punished. They also don't value rewards in the way other people do. Gregory et al., 2015. This means that punishment and rewards tend to have less of an effect, which results in gaslighters being more likely to do their own thing without concern about reactions from others. They practice cognitive empathy. Gaslighters may seem to understand how you feel, but take a closer look and you'll notice a robotic quality to their expressions of empathy. Their reactions seem flat or pre-recorded. There is no real emotion behind their words. Gaslighters are experts at using cognitive empathy, acting as if they have empathy without actually feeling it. They refuse personal responsibility. Jason, age 50. Quote, I was seeing a family for therapy, and the mother no longer wanted to attend sessions. She just wanted to have her kid come in so I could fix him. But she was more than willing to call me at all hours telling me how horrible her son was. When I told her that attending her son's session was a condition of therapy, she said I was a terrible therapist. End quote. It is always someone else's fault. This is the gaslighter's mantra. As noted earlier, personality disorders have a feature called egosyntonic behavior. This means that people with a personality disorder feel that they are normal and everyone else is crazy. They feel their behavior is perfectly acceptable and meets the needs of their ego. This is one of the reasons that people with personality disorders are so difficult to treat. They don't think anything is wrong with them or their behavior. They wear you down over time. Gaslighters bank on the idea that with enough time, they can weaken your spirit. They also expect that if they gradually ramp up their manipulative behavior, you will be the proverbial frog in the frying pan. And so, they will increase the heat so slowly that you don't realize you're being psychologically burned alive. In the beginning of your relationship with a gaslighter, things may be pretty good. In fact, they are too good to be true. The gaslighter still even compliments you from time to time. Then, the criticisms creep in. The reason for this flip-flop between contempt and praise? Gaslighters know confusion weakens the psyche. With uncertainty comes vulnerability. Toward the end, you are believing blatant lies that you never would have accepted at the beginning of your relationship. They habitually lie. Audra, age 29, quote, my ex told me that I never saw any inappropriate texts on his phone. He actually said he thought I was losing my mind. I started to think maybe he was right. End quote. If gaslighters are caught with the proverbial hand in the cookie jar, they will look you right in the eye and tell you they did no such thing. It makes you question your sanity. Maybe I didn't see them do it after all. This is what they want, for you to become more dependent on their version of reality. They may even push things further along by telling you that you are losing your mind. What gaslighters say is virtually meaningless. They are habitual liars. For this reason, you always want to pay attention to what gaslighters do, not what they say. They are terrible teasers. Javier, age 25, quote, "My brother always called me a loser. A few times, fine. But then he did it in front of girls I was interested in, and his voice would get really mean-sounding. I told him it wasn't cool to do that, and he just blew it off like, deal with it." End quote. Gaslighters are terrible teasers. At first, it's small things said when the two of you are alone, such as how your hair looks or your accent. It then ramps up to their teasing you in front of your friends. When you say that their comments or mimicry bothers you, they tell you that you are being too sensitive. This is different than just regular sibling teasing or joking around with friends. With gaslighters, it is a perpetual teasing. It has a mean quality to it. And most important, your requests for it to stop go unheeded. Their compliments aren't really. Mila, age 23, quote, "He said that the dinner I cooked was really good and that he was glad he finally taught me how to cook. I went from feeling good to feeling terrible in a couple of seconds." End quote. The gaslighter is a pro at giving out complisalts, a portmanteau of compliment and insult. There is no such thing as a true compliment with a gaslighter or narcissist. It is always backhanded or passive-aggressive, which we will cover later on in this audiobook. They project their emotions. Gaslighters may have such a poor sense of their own emotions or actions that they have no idea they are projecting their behavior onto someone else. For example, a gaslighter will say you need a drug test when he himself is the one who is using. They isolate you. Gaslighters tend to tell you that your friends and family are bad influences on you, or that you don't seem happy when you are around those you actually care about. They may also refuse to go to family events with you because, quote, "your family makes me uncomfortable," end quote, or some other vague substance-less excuse. Such a gaslighter is banking on the idea that instead of having to explain to your family why you are attending holiday events without him, you'll end up spending the occasion alone with him. The more the gaslighter succeeds at isolating you, the more susceptible you are to his control. They use flying monkeys. Gaslighters will try to send messages to you through other people, especially when you take the courageous step to cut off contact. These people are sometimes unwittingly carrying a gaslighter's messages. You will learn more about flying monkeys in Chapter 2. They tell others that you are crazy. Gaslighters will drive wedges between you and other people in all sorts of clever ways. After you leave a job with a gaslighting boss, for instance, your colleagues might tell you that they wondered what was going on because the boss told them to, quote, "tread lightly around that one," end quote. There is no more effective way to discredit you than to tell people that you are crazy. You are now seen as fragile and unstable. They don't keep promises. Jerusha, age 28, quote, "My ex-boyfriend told me his boss said he could relocate when I got a new job across the country. But when my new job was confirmed, my ex said his boss took back the offer. This wasn't the first time he changed his story when things got down to the wire." End quote. For gaslighters, promises are made to be broken. If gaslighters promise you anything, assume that it is an empty promise. If a gaslighter happens to be your employer, get those promises in writing. You'll learn more about gaslighting in the workplace in Chapter 4. Loyalty is required, but not reciprocal. Gaslighters require complete and unrealistic loyalty, but don't expect loyalty from them. As you'll learn in Chapter 2, they are notorious for their compulsive infidelity. Gaslighters do whatever they want to you, but God help you if they think you've betrayed them. They will make your life a living hell. They kick people when they are down. Not merely satisfied to leave well enough alone when they have inflicted their damage, gaslighters continue to beat those who are on the ground. They get a sick pleasure from watching others suffer. They especially get excited when they know someone is suffering because of them. They avoid admitting problems they've caused. Gaslighters will say that you, or people around them, are irrational and have things all wrong, when in reality, they are avoiding having to explain themselves or take responsibility for their actions. For example, gaslighters will put their coworkers at risk by not following workplace safety guidelines. When they are confronted by superiors about these violations, they argue that no one really got hurt and that they are being unfairly targeted. Or gaslighting parents who are told by their child's teacher that it would be helpful if they would spend more time on reading at home will automatically blame the other parent for the child's issues with reading, or blame the teacher or the school for bringing it up. They bait and switch. Your gaslighter boss comes by your cubicle and asks whether you have a couple of minutes to chat about a new project. You are excited, especially because this extra work might be an incentive for the boss to give you a raise. In the meeting with your boss, you're told that you do have a new project because someone else was let go. Now you have additional responsibility without reward. Before you can ask any questions, the boss tells you he is busy and closes the door behind you. This is a classic manipulation move. Bring people in by promising them one thing, then switch it on them once they accept it. But don't people just manipulate others sometimes? What's the difference between someone who manipulates for a particular benefit and a gaslighter? It's a fine line. Whereas manipulation or influence is an essential part of some jobs, such as sales, it's a pattern of behavior with gaslighters. Their default mode. That is, when most people lie, it's for a specific outcome, to avoid confrontation, get ahead, or curry favor with someone. But with gaslighters, there is no particular reason to lie, and yet they do it over and over again, often in an escalating fashion as they feel the effects of their power. This is done just for the sake of doing it, to con, gain control of, and confuse you. Gaslighters manipulate others not just situationally, but as a way of life. Why do gaslighters behave this way? For gaslighters, everything they do is about gaining power over others and filling their endless pit of neediness. There is a debate regarding nature versus nurture with gaslighters. Sometimes people are just born manipulators. Gaslighting behaviors can also be learned from parents or other people in a child's life. Gaslighters who were psychologically abused as children learned maladaptive coping techniques so as to cope with the cruelty inflicted upon them. In Chapter 7, you will learn more about gaslighters in the family. Many gaslighters have narcissistic injury, a perceived threat to their self-worth or self-esteem. They then react with narcissistic rage. This rage isn't always loud. It can be quiet and just as dangerous. In fact, when the narcissist is full of rage, it usually comes across as an eerie calm, enough to make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. Why have you lived with this? It takes a certain amount of cognitive dissonance to remain connected to a gaslighter, whether it is a partner, sibling, parent, coworker, or someone you helped elect. Cognitive dissonance occurs when you have information about the gaslighter that is completely contradictory to your beliefs, values, and what you thought you knew about that person. When we have a state of cognitive dissonance, we react in one of the following ways. We ignore the contradictory information. We fight against the contradictory information. We replace our beliefs and values with the contradictory information. You may have put up with it because you convinced yourself that it was normal. But the healthiest way to resolve cognitive dissonance is to take action to bring yourself back into alignment with your own beliefs and values. And many times that means leaving or distancing yourself from the gaslighter. You will learn more in this audiobook about how to do this in a healthy way, even if you have to have some form of ongoing contact with the gaslighter, such as in a co-parenting relationship. So, what can you do? Throughout this audiobook, we'll look at ways to decrease a gaslighter's influence in your life. Many of these will boil down to one thing: get as far away as possible. Because gaslighters are so slippery and manipulative, your best bet is to cut off all contact. If you can't completely cut off contact, drastically reduce it. Also, never let them see you sweat. Gaslighters' payoff is knowing they've upset you. If you don't react or act bored, they will usually leave you alone. Some people try giving a gaslighter a taste of his own medicine by yelling and manipulating right back. This can work in the very short term, shocking the gaslighter into silence, but don't be fooled. He'll come back for revenge. This is a tricky game to play. And at what cost to you? In Chapter 7, we'll look at what it means to have fleas, to take on the gaslighter's behaviors. It doesn't work. You don't want to start acting like a gaslighter, no matter how strong the temptation. If you've forgotten how healthy people behave, if you've been around a gaslighter for a while, it can be easy to forget what a psychologically healthy person looks like. Psychologically healthy people encourage expression of opinions, say what they mean, and mean what they say, support you, even if they don't agree with you, let you know in a direct and kind way if you've hurt them, are capable of emotional intimacy, the mutual sharing of feelings and ideas, trust others, exhibit behaviors that are genuine and authentic. Let's move on to how gaslighting works in dating and intimate relationships. So many good, smart, loving people find themselves with gaslighters, and I want to show you that there are ways out. You don't have to live your life under their spell.
And that was actually Chapter 1 of Gaslighting, Recognize Manipulative and Emotionally Abusive People and Break Free by Stephanie Moulton Sarkis, PhD. Back in a minute. Thank you, and this is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that materialism is a concept.